Hey friends, it's Rucheli, and it has been a hot minute since I came on and did a podcast. And I'm not going to apologize because I needed the time off. Things got a little crazy around Pesach time, and life in general was just very busy for me. And I'm teaching and talking about embodiment and listening to ourselves and listening to the way that our neshama expresses itself in our bodies, and that means I'm not going to force myself to do something that isn't feeling good for myself or for my family. And so I've been pretty quiet since Pesach. And then over the summer we were doing some traveling, got back from some traveling, and those of you who know me or who are friends with me on Facebook know that after those travels, not too long after, we were unfortunately in a situation of losing a little neshama. We were about 4 months pregnant when we found out that there was no heartbeat, and we went through that whole process of both the physical logistics of pregnancy loss as well as obviously and mainly the emotional recovery process that comes with that sort of loss and that sort of grief. And I've got a post up on my blog if you want to read how I was processing at the time. That was about a month ago, and I've decided it's time to get back into the swing of things here. I've been teaching an Embodied Chassidus class locally here in Las Vegas, and one of the things I'll be doing on the podcast going forward is sharing some cleaned up recordings of those classes, and then I'll be taking the meditations that I create for those classes and adding those as YouTube videos and linking to those in the bottom of every podcast class. So those are coming your way soon as well. Also just more general podcasting as well, but I think for the near future, the main focus is going to be on preparing for those classes that I'm giving and allowing you all to partake in that class experience through the podcast. The classes are mostly focused on the talks of the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1991 and 1992, which is also known as Devar Malchus. And the reason that I'm focusing on these talks in particular is that I find the emphasis that the Rebbe puts on living a Geulah life now, even when we can look around and think it's not Geulah. The sikhs that come out of those years, the talks that come out of those years, are really about making the Geulah state real for ourselves. And how can we embody the abundance and the simcha and the inner peace that is inherent to the Geulah state in our lives, no matter what's going on right now. And I think the approach that the Rebbe has in these sikhs, teaching us how to go about doing that in a real way, is one of the big things that got me and my husband and our kids through this miscarriage process, realizing that, by standard definitions, miscarriage is not something that is supposed to happen in the Geulah era, right? Like, that's supposed to go away. So if we're talking about already being in the process of Geulah, why is this still happening? And the answer is it's still a process. And this is one of the things I was speaking with some of the women in the class about recently. The Yidden left Mitzrayim, the Jews left Egypt, and then wandered in the desert for 40 years before they got into the Promised Land. And there were all sorts of not great, not Geulah style things going on during those 40 years of wandering, in addition to some highlights like receiving the Torah, but it was not all peachy keen while they were traveling in the desert. And then they got into Eretz Israel, into the land of Israel, and it was another 400-something years before the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, was built in Jerusalem. So that was a long process. Geulah was not instantaneous back then, and I think there's this misconception that we're waiting for this magical surprise, it's Geulah now, kind of moment to happen, when in reality, Geulah is also a process right now, and the Rebbe says over and over again that Geulah process has already started, and the extent to which we're able to tap into that Geulah energy ourselves will determine how widespread the Geulah process becomes for the world at large. right? And so it's our responsibility to be able to see in everything that is going on where the Geulah energy is. And obviously, when we're talking about something like miscarriage or pregnancy loss or any sort of loss that we're grieving, it can be really hard to identify where the good in that process is. And I think having spent a lot of time learning these talks from the Rebbe from 1991 and 1992 really allowed us to process what we were going through in a beautiful, meaningful, powerful way, where we weren't spiritually bypassing and just saying, oh, everything's fine, everything's amazing. Like, we were feeling all of the feels. And while feeling all of those feels, we were also still able to really tap into this deep inner joy and this deep peace and this deep knowing that Hashem is with us and that everything is happening by divine will, by divine design. It is all intentional. This was not a loss. Like, we didn't, lost it. Like, that is not how this works. There was no accident here. And we talked a lot to our kids about how special of a soul we were able to interact with for the brief little time that we did, and how this soul became part of our family for the rest of forever. Kabbalah speaks about when Tchias HaMesim, when the revival of the dead happens in the fully revealed era of Geulah that we're working towards, all of these neshamas come back, including the ones that were never even born. And so this little neshama that we've named Tal Simcha will be with us forever and is blessing our family in all sorts of ways, and is now, looking out for us on high, which we appreciate and we love this little neshama for. And being able to talk to our kids about that and being able to talk to ourselves about this, honestly, really helped smooth the process out for us and helped us, yes, grieve, but also see the light and see the peace and see the tranquility and see the wholeness in this situation, that without the grounding and the concepts that the Rebbe talks about in these years, I don't know if we would have been able to make it through that process with the peace and the tranquility that we did. Again, we felt all of the feels. I'm not saying that I didn't cry. I cried a ton. We all did. And there's still moments, a month later, where it just hits you in waves, and that's how grief works. And you can have that grief and hold that grief and process that grief in a broader container of faith and trust and knowing and a deep inner joy. And it kind of smooths out the ups and the downs a little bit and makes it a more peaceful process. Does it make it easy? No, there's no such thing as an easy loss like that. But it did make it really beautiful in its own way and really powerful in its own way. And there are lessons that we learned, and there are life changes that we've made in the last month that obviously would not have happened without this experience. And we talk a lot about, in our classes, we talk a lot about this concept that everything that happens for us, not to us. And that's a really hard concept to wrap your head around when you're going through something that you don't want to have happen. Like, how is this happening for me? I don't want to have it happen at all. It feels like it's happening to me, not for me. And I want to just leave it here because I'm going to upload a little bit late, but I'm going to upload the class that we did last week for Kiseitze, which is actually my birthday parsha. And I'm going to upload that class because we talk a lot about this concept of what does it mean that life is happening for us, not to us, when we're going through things that are hard to process. And the Rebbe gives us this answer that is really beautiful and really powerful and really can carry us through so many difficult situations in life. So I want to just thank you for checking this episode out after it's been several months of some radio silence here, and send you on over to the next episode as soon as it's out, and the episodes that are coming after that as well. And I hope that you find the same level of meaning and purpose and comfort and ability to really be fully present and fully embodied through the teachings that we're going to be discovering together. I will see you soon.